Thank you, Kamal, for everything. It's great. Okay, so actually the title of this talk is called Making Their Market. There's like an E.T. missing at the end of this. So this is that moment where we're going to talk about the market. And the market is always this scary monster under the bed for every artist, it feels like this very dark, scary, nefarious thing that's very hard to control and understand and enter. It doesn't have to be that way, but I often say, and I've been quoted as saying, that the market is like the weather. No point in complaining about it, no point in trying to control it. Really just take an umbrella, get a good coat, just be prepared for it. That's the only way to survive it well. And enjoy good moments of it, actually. So with that, I have this esteemed panel, which I thought was a bit like, wow, this is like, we have half an hour, and this is the range of what we have to cover? That's kind of crazy. Just a few things I'd like to say. In order to sort of start this, there's a few things I need to kind of say and debunk, so we're speaking a language that doesn't contradict some of the concepts that were brought up yesterday, but rather maybe reinforces them in some way. So it is my understanding in a market, that particularly the art market, a work of art is worth what someone will pay for it. It's when it resells that you know it's a larger market, or a more, say, objective market in the world. That is the hard reality. The market isn't really what your gallery set it at until it resells and a new price is set. We'll get to that later. I think the other thing we have to talk about just for a second is there was a whole interesting discussion about quality as a gatekeeping term. That was, I think, in the panel with the artists where we talked about the weaponization of quality and what that means. And I will certainly say that quality is most certainly used to discriminate. I was bringing up earlier, years and years ago, like in the earlier part of the 20th century, Harvard had a requirement on their applications for character. And of course, Harvard was all men's back then. And character was really, it was used in a discriminatory manner to keep, it meant, did you travel the continent and were you good at sports? Well, that would eliminate a lot of people who grew up in an urban environment and were poor. It really was kind of used to keep Jews out, honestly, at that time. So all of these words can be weaponized. And similarly, in the art market, quality gets very weaponized. But I want to just, for the purpose of this talk, have consensus that we're not talking about that kind of quality. We're talking about the more pedestrian use of quality, where in art we would say, well, that particular example has a kind of consummateness of that artist's work, or it is an extremely great example of them on their very best day, versus a sketch on a cocktail napkin or something. So I just want to be very clear when we talk about quality, we're not talking about that quality, we're talking about this quality. So I think I will start this by asking Mary a question everybody wants to know. How do you price a work of art for sale in a gallery context? How do you do that? How does that happen? Like, what do you do? Is it like 50K? How do you do it?
Well, you wanted zesty. So you're
Bring
going to
it
get
on,
zesty.
bring it on.
And just to say, we have had some disagreements in our panel about the definition for some of these words and their use. Pricing, if you ask the artists of the gallery, they will all say she prices too low. So, and this may be, my downfall, because in a gallery that has, almost 70% women artists, there definitely, there definitely is, I think, still a penalty for being a woman artist. Pricing, I do historically, what the artist has done by size, by quality. Is it one of the best? Is it rare? I mean, these are all the kind of boilerplate things that you do. The trick is when an artist comes to you, or recently an estate, we work with a lot of estates, and you really have to start from ground zero, and that's a test. You use your experience, you use what other artists maybe from that particular country who make that kind of work, and it's a test. And what I always tell the artists, and they really don't like this, is you can always go up, but you cannot go down. So setting pricing is one of the most sensitive, parts of my job, and one of the most stressful.
I agree. I mean, whether it's in a gallery context or in like an auction house context, my background, pricing, like calling the market is the hardest, most proprietary skill. And whenever I would like call it, really right, I'd feel like I hit a home run. And whenever I'd price it a little off, I'd be like, okay, even A-Rod bats 350. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, no one bats 1,000, as they say in baseball. But A-Rod, the greatest player of all time, batted 350. So, I mean, if you bat 600 in the art market, you're a superstar. Okay, next question is for Renée. Renée is our data scientist and economist. She's very bright. She has many interesting... This is the one person on the panel I didn't know before the panel, so our acquaintanceship is thanks to this panel. There's a few things I want to ask you, but I think... Well, I'm going to give you a quote, which is a quote that I heard someone say on like Bloomberg TV one time, and I had to like Google it to find out who said it and really dig for it. But torture the data and it will confess to anything, is what this said. So I love that quote because, of course, data can show us both positively. Like, I understand the jobs market is up this month, but it doesn't feel that way, according to our president. So data can kind of tell you what you want. But I think one of the key things about data is trying to understand parity of samples, right? Like, if I'm comparing this sample group to this sample group, is there reasonable parity, right? You can't compare things that are so absolutely disparate. There's no real overlap. So I'd like to ask you, Renée, what parity means and which metric of parity, which would be like, volatility, time to liquidity, institutional validation, whatever your sense of parity is in groups, what metric of all those data points in parity is the least gamifiable, or where you would sort of game it a bit?
Well, like you said, you can torture the data as much as you like to game anything. But I think it's really important to actually torture the data.
Yeah.
And just to, so I am pretty tech, but I have a little zine that I put out that describes some of my research, so people can like connect to it. I guess what I would like to say in terms of the data aspect, so yesterday we talked a lot about measurement and how important it is, but actually you have to go further. And one reason that you have to go further is because if you show, for example, if we talk about parity, so I document that women are underpriced significantly in the auction market. So female painters sell at a roughly 42% discount relative to male painters in the auction market. That's not parity, right? Now the question is, what does it mean, right? And that's where we have to push harder. So we have to try and understand what does it mean, because it's very easy to say, well, the reason that women undersell is the quality difference.
And it's only paintings, right, in that data point?
Yeah, but now I'm working on extending it.
Right. But not works on paper or drawings?
You could do the same thing for works on paper and drawings.
But that 42% is about women painters particularly,
about women.
Their paintings versus okay.
Yeah, but you can do it in other spheres, right? So even textiles, I think you would find that. And so the problem is that people may say, well, this can be explained by a quality difference, right? This is Cecilia mentioned the gatekeeping, the quality argument is gatekeeping. And so basically what we show, and you don't even have to torture the data in order to show that this underpricing is explained by cultural bias, which is really important because it means that the quality argument, you said we're not going to talk about that kind of quality, but I am talking about that kind of quality. Right? But it's really important to actually, establish that, this is not gamified, right? And so when you say, well, what does parity mean? I think parity means that there's no underpricing, right? So the price should not be a function of gender, essentially, right? So that would be like the most basic definition of parity.
It's like feminism 101, equal pay for equal work. Like absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. As basic as it gets, really. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I have yet to see a data set where gender does not matter. So we are not there yet.
Right. I'm trying to think of any situation I've been in where gender does not matter, and I can't think of one, so that's probably true. Okay, so Bonnie, Bonnie and I have very similar backgrounds, years and years at the auction house, and we both are the rare women in the field who've had tours of duty at both Christie's and Sotheby's. So we are like, 2-star generals here in this way.
5-star.
War
Five
torn.
star.
5-star, right. I'd like this show of hands in the room because this is something, for those of you who are not as familiar with the auction landscape, I'll just simply say that, auction houses kind of lead the market in their volume and velocity, but not a vial. But in their volume, and that was Chelsea Clinton's quote yesterday. But in their sort of volume and velocity of trading, they're very visible, they're very newsworthy, big prices. But that said, behind the curtain, auction houses have to do the most to stay ahead of broader regulation, broader regulatory things in the art market. So I would like to ask this room, just with whatever your experiences of the art market in the way you know it, either yourself as an artist or as a collector or as someone who's just a spectator observer, how many of you think that the art market needs a more comprehensive regulatory approach? Okay, I'm gonna say a little more than half. Did it feel that way? Yeah. A little more than half. Okay. Then I will just ask you all this question. Obviously, I'm going to come down on the side of no, because I would ask you who the regulators would be. Okay? Like, imagine the Goonies that would come and check on you. And I think probably that's what Hitler would have been, was a regulator, because he was a failed artist and was probably very angry at the whole establishment. So he's like, yeah, let me get in there and be a regulator. Let me get in there and, like, fuck them, like, really find something wrong in their books, So I would just caution, like, you can only have a regulatory environment when you trust the regulators. And what kind of, like, intelligence or background or experience could that be? So regulated versus unregulated. Auction houses almost always act as self-regulators. I wonder, Bonnie, if you could shed some light on the painstaking amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to keep the market fair, open, honest, transparent, and how in your career you may have seen that affect the either recent success or long-term lagging of women artists.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think when Amy posed that question to us, it's like, what problem are we trying to solve for? And, when I went through sort of the top reasons why one would want greater regulation, I hope gives those who raise their hands some comfort to know behind the scenes we're doing all those things, whether it's anti-money laundering, provenance research, authenticity, all the things that really keep people up at night. I think the other part is sort of to Renee's point and Mary's point about transparency, making people aware of what's really happening. So much of the art world feels opaque to the larger world. It doesn't feel like everybody has the same sort of data to work with. And that's what we're trying to do with expanding our platforms. We started 5 years ago our 21st Century Art platform so that we could create a forum for underrepresented artists, for female artists, to bring sort of that transparency to what their market looked like. I think that in that space, though, one has to be very careful to be a guardian, particularly for those young artists. And I think in my career, I've seen that sometimes not be handled with the delicacy that it should. Women want to celebrate and push women forward, and you go get them. And they don't see so much about, and I think what was talked about yesterday, is preserving the change that we've seen and not giving that up. And we're in an environment where we've lost a lot as women, and that's really scary. Because I think, for me at least, I grew up, Roe versus Wade was already in place. I'm 52 years old, but I don't remember a time where that wasn't a reality for me, and it's been taken away. And the same thing is, and obviously a very micro scale, but preserving women's value in the art world. You push them too fast, and it's gonna fall. And so being patient and really having good advisors like Mary, listening to the auction houses when they say, that's not the right, we wanna put value on you, but we can't do that right away. We've gotta let there be a proper runway. And I feel, and I think Amy and I agree, it's a much better time to be a female artist right now than it was 5 years ago. But to Renee's point, we still have a long, long way to go. Women are spending more, which is great, because women are looking at women artists. But to echo what Renee said, we've got work to do.
So are you going to give me your data?
Yeah.
I could make a really bad joke about that right now, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Data breach over at Christie's. Renee B. Adams hacked the whole system.
No comment.
Yeah, I mean,
Zach's in the back.
So when we started to think about this panel, there's a lot of ways to kind of slice and dice it here. But I sort of thought, well, for those of us with a little bit of gray at the temples, we could say, there's not a better time ever to be a woman artist than right now.
I disagree.
Maybe it was better, maybe it was better like 15 months ago or something, but nominally, like things are still humming like that way. And I've, when in my youth, a woman artist, if you were really lucky, you got a gig at a community college teaching, and that would take care of your benefits, but you never expected commercial success, or recognition was slow and plodding at best. So I think I would challenge the room in this moment to sort of say, okay, like let's split all progressives in half. Because one of the things progressives lack, including many of us here, is the ability to fight for preservation. Okay, it is like a dull. The other guys are really good at saying no. This is firm in the ground. So if half of the progressives could learn to fight for preservation instead of constantly fighting for change, because now we've had enough victories that we need to just get into the dig your heels in mode and say, no, we're not taking that down. No, you're not penetrating that barrier. No. We need to preserve what we've fought for and won, because it is so quickly being eroded, because generally speaking, progressive mindsets only have one speed, which is to continue to change. But you can't go on to the next change if the one you just made is about to be taken away from you again. So we need a whole, as that applies in larger politics in my mind, it really applies also for the art world and the art market in particular. And so keeping some of those victories in place is really, really critical. Mary, why do you think it's worse now? What the hell? What's...
Well, it's a relative choice, right? So, of course, it's better now than in 1975, when you still went on abortion duty with your friends, or you couldn't get your own credit card. Of course, just like, it's better, it's better that there's not child marriage in New York, where there was not so long ago. However, I cannot say that it is good. Even the data, right, when Charlotte and Julia, I think they're here, gave their report, it peaked in 2019, right? The representation of women in museum exhibitions and acquisitions peaked, and it's gone down. And in sort of, momentum loves its own force. So once something starts going down, once rights are eroded, and they have been, I think we are in a perilous situation for human rights in this country. And when human rights are at risk, women, people of color, it's just like a declining scale. It is perilous. And I think that the only way is to recognize that we are not in a great situation, and to organize and to, as you say, say no, but we need to say no on a huge scale, right? We need to say no on the scale of the civil rights movement, on the scale of women's suffrage movement. We need to say, of the resistance in Minneapolis, we need to say, no, it's enough.
I think we'd all agree to that. I think in this moment, the tactics, because of social media, because of all sorts of forces, it's just going to be different, and everyone's a little stymied figuring out the next move. But just to take it back to art for a second, I will just for like linkages, I am wearing this suit, which was the first suit I bought when I joined Christie's. How's that? It's 2001. I bought it in October 2001, just after 9/11. And it was Tom Ford's first really big season at Gucci, and the shareholder of Christie's happened to own Gucci, so I really went and bought this nice Gucci suit. But when I first, that was 2001. So when I first started at Christie's, and I was in charge of the contemporary department with another person and ran the big sales, there was only one living woman artist who made an evening sale. One. She died shortly after. It was Agnes Martin. Was the only artist that made it, even unless it was a very, very excellent 50s Joan Mitchell, like a very special top of the heap kind of Mitchell. Dare I say quality, like highest quality Joan Mitchell. Or most consummate Joan Mitchell. Those really just never came around or came up, but a regular 80s painting or, a 70s field picture would usually be in a day sale. curiously. So if we look at Agnes Martin and Joan Mitchell as sort of anchors of 20th century female artists with market success, that is just to tell you from 2001 how it's changed. And the skirts, right? I got a memo that we should. There was always a memo that was circulated around. This is crazy. This was in 2001. I got a memo that said what appropriate dress was for a woman at Christie's. Testimony was a much more European, old school company that way, a little bit fussy and old fashioned. Sotheby's was always more publicly traded, New York based, a little at that time. But I couldn't even believe it. I was like, what is this? Like, what the hell is this place, you know?
I think it's interesting to your point about women in the evening sales. I was looking in preparation for today just to look at the top 10 prices for women artists at auction. The highest price is basically $55 million for Frida Kahlo. The highest price at auction is $450 million. So the other that we all know, so it's sort of an old story, but which is frustrating to Mary's point. But what's interesting is of the top 10, it's only like 4 artists. It's Frida Kahlo, Carrington, Louise Bourgeois, and Joan Mitchell. That's it. Agnes Martin doesn't even rank in the top 10, which is really
interesting because her work, if there's ever an artist who makes works that are like units of stock or something, it's Agnes Martin, because there's just like certain formats that repeat. And there's like 60-inch after 92, then there's a 72-inch square paintings that she can make only before 92 because she can't turn them herself, and then this color, that color. Like they're very formulaic in terms of how you price them.
But
so yeah.
Could I just interject? Sorry. But if the price at auction is the only determinant for a woman artist to achieve success, it is ignoring the majority of the artists.
Yeah,
right?
wait. This is making their market. This is a market panel.
But the market has other indicators, right? The market is built not only by the auction. Before it gets to auction, you need your team for your artists. You need institutional support.
Right.
You need academic support. You need collectors like Kamal who step up to the plate when it's your first show of June Edmonds and she buys a painting. Right? So that's a validation.
That's
for
a
that
stock
artist.
tip in this room, June Edmonds. Did you guys get that?
No, but I'm sorry. I wasn't supposed to talk about living artists, but that was our first connection.
Are you plugging your program right now?
No. Sorry. I mean, I'm sorry. Okay, I apologize. But it's that there are so many colleagues in this room who put their passion, their finances in a time when it's hard to make money to support their artists. And it's kind of, I admire you both so much. You know more about the market.
But you hate us.
No, not at all. But I feel it's making a determinant that's not the reality for most artists, and it's not why we do what we do.
No. I mean, listen, I will say, Mary, amen. But basically, all the little things you do every day to make an artist's market, to work hard, to go to the studio and talk to the artist, the best dealer in the entire world, who gets a shout out here for me today, what a dealer does isn't sell your work, they edit your work. They help you hone it and make it its best. And a lot of artists are very resistant to editing from their dealers, but there was one dealer who was the most ruthless editor in the world, Paula Cooper, was the most ruthless. Some of her artists left her. Gober left her. He couldn't stand the editing. But like, when you handle like a Joel Shapiro from 1982, and it's a cocktail napkin scrap of a drawing, if it has Paula Cooper probe, it's still good. Like, you can feel how she edited so tightly her artist's work. That is kind of lacking right now. We need a little bit more editing. There's just a little too much out there that isn't quite as, precise, I would say. But I'm just simply saying, making a market is slow erosion. The public price is just going, oh my God, look at that lake after the Ice Age. It is something that happens visibly after all the work is done. So I don't mean to diminish that. It's just sort of we're just talking about what's visible that we can manage. Go ahead, Renée.
Yeah, so can I just make a data scientist point?
Oh, please.
Yeah, okay, all right. So one also has to consider that, measure of success is not necessarily that some women make it, it's how many women want to make it and actually achieve that success, right? And so if we think about over time, so it used to be that women were allowed to go to art school. And so then one woman who manages to go to art school becomes successful, well, that's 100% success rate.
Right.
But then as more and more women go to art school, and we know, like most art schools, are majority female, right? So what fraction of those women actually make it in the market? And I would suspect, I don't have the data. Anyone wants to give me data so you can see, but I would suspect that fraction is actually, declining.
Of women
Of women who go to art school and then succeed in the market.
Yeah, I mean, maybe yes, but it depends on what kind of work they make and what their sort of pivot is, say.
But I think this is an important thing to ask, right? So, one measure of success is there are women who sell. Another measure of success is women who want to become artists. Do they become artists?
Right.
Right.
I mean, well,
and are they able to sustain a practice? And so I think that's a different way of looking at it that I think we have to acknowledge.
Right. I mean, although I would say I know a lot of women who are very porous in their artistic practice and like pivot from painting and go into film or video, and that's like just becomes a new medium for them and a new way of thinking, or stage sets, or go into scenography or something. Like I've just seen women feel more nimble in every single way, every day, all the time, in like period. So like that sort of shows up for me in artistic practices too, and how that is. But to stay the course as a gallery artist who makes objects that get sold in a public environment, which is what I believe we're meant to talk about, is, it's probably smaller. It's intimidating. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'll take dinner with a woman who didn't make it over a man who didn't make it all day long, though. I can tell you that for sure. So I think a relevant question for this room particularly is, maybe we could talk for a second about what's going on in the primary market, because even from Bonnie's lofty perch on high at the top of the auction market, it's still something, we feel something in the roots of the system between gallery, art fairs, all of the kind of infrastructure around it that feels like it's fracturing and cracking a bit. And I'm wondering, who wants to answer their first? Mary, you're going to be the obvious one here because it affects your business the most, but let's start with Bonnie, then Renee, then Mary.
Yeah, look, I think to the earlier question that Mary poses, it is a much bigger market than what we represent, and we see and appreciate that it's almost like what happens under, I don't even want to say under the water, because it's under the water makes it seem less important, and it's more important. It's like we're the trickle down from the mountain. It's the museum show. It's the galleries promoting their artists. It's collectors like Kamal buying before we even enter the picture. So I think the answer to Amy's question is we're all interconnected. We are nothing if we don't have great partners like Mary, like the big galleries, the small galleries. Mary was just explaining, we had a great celebration of Rosa de la Cruz last year. Great works by Ana Mendieta. We relied on Mary and the team to help us make sure that the information that we put forward was absolutely what it should be. And so we are not enemies. We are all supporting the market in different ways. Yes, I come to work every day with a different objective maybe than Mary, but I need Mary. And it makes me sad when I see, particularly this year, we've lost two major forces in the gallery world. And that is, who's next? And it makes room for someone else, but it's also in these challenging times, I think we have more accountability individually to take the mantle. We're going to sell works from Agnes Gund in May. Incredible collector, philanthropist, activist, contributor to society. When they took arts away in the 70s from New York City schools, she put that money back in and created a studio and a school. Who's the next Agnes Gund? Who's the next, Marion Goodman? And so we all have to really take that responsibility very seriously if we are going to be able to preserve what we celebrate and enjoy.
Renee?
Sorry, what was the question again?
I don't know, what was the question? No, just the disruption in the primary market for living artists showing, and then how that the sort of effect to art fairs, et cetera. There seems to be a feeling that the primary market has, and maybe this is out of your data sense,
but I can say a little bit. So this is like not my, so I'm an outsider to, to the art, the nitty gritty of the functioning of the art market.
You
but
won't be for long. But
yeah. Thank you. But I can just say, the work that I mentioned and that Kamal so kindly cited, and actually I wanted to give a shout out to Kamal. She made me feel as if my work is meaningful. which is like, you know.
I'm going to say Kamala is extremely validating on every level. Like, we all agree. Strongly agree. Thank you.
So I mentioned that 42% discount in the auction market. During the pandemic, one thing that I did during the pandemic is I was like, oh my God, all these art fairs went online, and so they actually posted prices. So I did this big data scraping exercise of prices from art fairs because I was like, ooh, primary market data, right? You never get this. And guess what? The discount is about 40%. So I
Even
would
the
say
same.
the primary market, the secondary market, we still have a long way to go.
Mary, talk about the disruption. Talk about it. Say it out. Call it by its name. Say it out loud.
Well, we have a disagreement on this too. I know you feel it's a Darwinian moment, but I feel it's an outgrowth of, late stage capitalism. Capitalism loves a monopoly, right? So if capitalism loves a monopoly, there's a consolidation of, people with access to capital, another disagreement we have, who has access to capital, and that
No, I agree that some people don't and others do.
Well, that
That's
women have historically had less access to capital.
But they're the big new buyers over at Christie's. Women drive more
which
new
is
sales.
great, which is great. And I think the disruption is that the artist, gallery, art fair part of the market is larger than the collector base, and that a lot of the magnificent collectors like Aggie, have died. Or they are at a point where they are thinking of legacy, and their legacy is either to donate the work or to sell the work or a combo of both. But we're all looking for that next generation. I think when I talk among colleagues, that's one of the big topics we have in a safe space is how do you refresh your client base? How do you bring people up to the level of people who want to make a great collection and contribute civically to the preservation of culture?
Right.
We don't have answers.
Right.
We don't have answers.
Yeah, no.
We don't have answers.
But we are in a Darwinian moment in that there are many more new galleries and artists wanting to show than there are new collectors coming online to be buying that work in volume, right? Like we're missing a certain kind, like you just said.
There's always energy for the new galleries, right? Every art fair wants some new galleries.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, I just simply mean the volume of galleries that show primary market material. And they, continue to come online. I'm not, Yeah, they can come and they go, but there's a kind of high supply one side, 5 minutes, low participation other side, and that sort of refreshing is different, which tells me that there's only three things that ever disrupt a market. Okay, one is capital.
I have to write this down.
Art world has had massive capital disruption. More money has poured into it in the last 15 years than in the previous 500 probably. The second is a certain kind of legislation or regulation, which is more locally situated based on like droit de suite in Europe or 50-year rule in Italy for export, all these kinds of mainly import-export things. The third is technology. So we have had kind of all three, but a huge capital disruption and a huge technological disruption, i.e. price discovery. Like doesn't take much to figure out what comparable things have sold for. That used to just not exist. It was incredibly opaque. So that's actually good for the customer. It's good for the collector, good for the consumer. It does screw the old way of working, right? So that means galleries have had to make a serious pivot. Increasingly in a global environment, everybody has had to go to all these art fairs. It's like these long march through all these fairs. And it's like, what am I doing here? I'll never get these 2 days back ever again in my life. Like, why am I here? Very existential for me sometimes. But it's, as you're going through, you realize that younger dealers or artists, dealers who represent artists on the more emerging side, need to raise the price of the entry-level price point to be able to afford to be at that gallery. Because the pay-to-play is enormous. Then what happens is people are having fun in the art world, they're socializing, they're going to Venice, they're going to dinner, they're having a great time, going to the opening, joining a board of a museum. Then someone says, hey, you guys have bought a lot of art. As your insurance provider, you need to get an appraisal. So they go to Christie's or elsewhere, and they say, yeah, everything you bought, it's about 30 cents on the dollar. And then people go like, fuck, what am I doing? What did we do? We just spent $2 million and we just got this appraisal and we're completely gobsmacked. Now, that happens, and of course, we all know building a good collection takes years. I always say that works of art, you can tell if they were loved when you look at them. You can tell if they were trade bait or if they were loved. Like, I can feel it, the aura in the object, truthfully. And so the trading and the sort of accumulation of things, it's just harder. That's really hard. So it's like a supply side problem versus a absorption problem. Okay, we're done, right? Does anybody want to have?
You know, I think you make a good point about the financial disruption, but we're about to come into this incredible wealth transfer. And I think the glimmer of hope there is the transfer to women, not just down as children, but spouses, and the way that women look at art, the way they collect art. I think it's an incredibly optimistic moment for female artists because there's going to be so much power and control beyond what is already there. And we're going to keep seeing that. And I think that that's fantastic. And we're all part of this world where we can help make sure that those works are front and center for that incredible buying power. You know, the Kamals, the next generation of Kamals, who are really going to have that interest. And I think women by nature are also more civic minded. You know, they're not just putting things on their walls, they're thinking about the institutions they support and what they want to see in those institutions and having those conversations with the galleries. So I think it's, we have a lot of work to do, but I think there's a lot of optimism.
Renee?
So from a purely feminist perspective, I think we can't ask women to solve women's problems. And so, yeah.
What does that mean, actually?
It's structural.
Who are we going to ask, or how are we going to do it?
Well, so I think it's great that women are going to get more capital, but we need to do more. And so I'm an educator, right? So I think it's really important that we educate people on the market, particularly as a finance academic. You know, people talk about the market, and they have in mind that somehow the market works. But all the conditions necessary for the market to work don't hold in the art market. This is not an efficient market. Okay, and this is where you then get these fallacies that say,
That's
like,
why it's
price is equal to
beautiful,
quality.
by the way.
Right? So I think we need to educate people more. The more we educate people, the more research that can be done. Give me your data. The more analysis that we do. I think the more we can sort of like highlight the structural inequalities. So I think that's really important.
Bravo.
Are we done? Do you guys feel free to ask questions of anyone later on, but thank you very much. Thank you, Kamal and team. Thank you.